are back live. We're going to be talking in this hour and the next about the Internet's creator. And no, it's not Al Gore. The true Internet creator in the French news agency saying governments are killing the web as we know it, openly saying that the web is dying, being shut down. And that is what's happening. The designer, the main scientist credited with bringing it all together, is telling you this, okay? So the denial needs to be over on this issue. We're going to get into the huge fact that at least 500 vans with high-powered radiation are violating your Fourth Amendment and hitting you with radiation, scanning your house while you're in it. Got a key report. They've now got highway checkpoints radiating people as they drive through them. The cops are all just standing out there right outside the radiation projector as the truck drives under it, being hit themselves with it. I mean, it's just insanity. It's people literally killing themselves in slow motion. And it's a soft kill, so when they die 10, 15 years down the road, it'll be, oh, we wonder why there's such an increase in this cancer or that cancer. They've got it all figured out. We're also going to get into where Mark Dice sees society going. He's been fighting the New World Order intensely for more than 5 years, and he's got a unique and very thought-provoking perspective. But we see the rise of the Tea Party. We see world government now being admitted by the globalists as a good thing. The fake right wing who denied it existed now saying, oh, there's a few problems. Low-level professors run it, not the Pentagon, the globalist, the Rand Corporation, who are on record setting up a socialistic, collectivistic world government, this collectivist system. And again, we've gone over all these documents, so many. Every week there's new ones, like Global Trends 2025, put out by the National Security Council, saying they want world government. Okay, the denial is over. And in this world government, the goal is to set up a control grid and then soft kill you. But people are waking up to GMO, so the government's trying to pass laws that you can't label if something's non-GMO. They're not going to let you know if salmon's cross-species with insect genes and eel genes and rabbit genes. They're trying to pass laws, you know, where you can't videotape police, but that's being overturned. Humanity is fighting back. For all the bad things that are happening, a lot of good is happening as well. Mark Dice from The Resistance, good to have you on with us.
Well, you know, I wish I wouldn't have to do this, but unfortunately I have a big mouth, and this is just something I have to do. People always say to me, well, you know, do you really believe what you're doing? Why are you doing this? Of course I do. I mean, I can't not do this. I'm an angry guy. This is the stuff that I talk about amongst my friends, and this is the platform that we use to find like-minded people to come together. And people say, oh, are we really doing any good? We are doing good. Look at the things that we've changed. Look at the things that we've stopped or minimized. And also there's a micro change as well, because when you become aware of these issues, you change. And you might not even see the change globally, but you yourself change. Your life changes, your family, your relationships, your finances. Your whole priority changes. So you yourself are then pulled out of the system and in a sense, saved from it. So I think we're doing a lot of work, and I think that we need to continue. But there's some really horrific stuff happening and coming down the line. And I think George Orwell predicted it perfectly in his 1949 book, 1984. And it's just quite scary how the ignorance of the population, the social structure, the control of information, the perpetual state of war.
That's right. He talks in the book about if we could ever get the general public, the lower classes, the proles, who were 90% of the public in that fictional system, but it was based off what he saw in the Soviet Union and what was developing in East Germany. If you could ever get the general public to not care about sports and lottery tickets, you could get the proles to have endless calculations and mathematics about the supposed lottery, but you couldn't get them to notice that Big Brother said they'd always been at war with East Asia, and the next day they say they've never been at war with East Asia. He said, why won't they stand up? Why won't they wake up? And now here we are. Now here we are, Mark.
To quote him, he says here, quote, heavy physical labor, care of the home and children, petty quarrels with neighbors, films, football, beer, and above all gambling filled the horizons of their minds. To keep them in control was not difficult. All that was required of them was a primitive patriotism which could be appealed to whenever it was necessary to make them accept longer working hours and shorter rations. And when they became discontented, as they sometimes did, their discontent contentment led nowhere, because being without general ideas, they could only focus on petty grievances.
And that's what Glenn Beck is doing in the final equation. He's admitting much of the world government, but claiming it's Obama and some mid-level professors, when meanwhile, globalism is billions a year in government payments to Fox TV and News as part of behavior placement. All the networks get it. And the Pentagon and Rand Corporation and Ford Foundation on record have set all this up, including the Soviet Union, the Ford Foundation and others, and the Carnegie before that. I mean, it's on record they want collectivism. That's what globalism is. But again, McCarthy, he was okay as long as he was blaming low-level file clerks and janitors and calling them up. But when he found out the Pentagon was running communism, and he found out there was a plan to merge our nations, it was over for Joseph McCarthy.
Well, you had the Pentagon actually funded back in the 70s, the RFID program. They actually called it the MARC card, the Multi-Technical Automated Reader card, the MARC card. So the Department of Defense funded that. It was tested back again in the 1990s at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Interesting how the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, all these foundations fund a lot of this stuff. You know, I found that the top facial recognition software company, Visionics, was started by a man named Joseph Attic in 1991. He was actually recruited by Rockefeller University and funded to specifically design the facial recognition
Everything is, Mark. We've got stuff from '66 where they said we're going to develop a hormone added to a tetanus shot to sterilize women. And the great part is they're still going to be able to get pregnant, but they'll have a miscarriage at the start of the second trimester. It's a perfect secret weapon. And the added goodie, this is all declassified, is that the miscarriages kill some of the women, so it's even better. Oh, how luscious. I mean, you name it. The Rockefeller Foundation, others funded the Rand Corporation, all of them. Everything. Everything you see, they designed.
And it's so incredible how so much of this Big Brother technology really is just quackery and designed to keep everybody intimidated, not to detect any terrorists. Let's look at this plan to put microphones and cameras in the planes' seats in the European Union. This is actually quite foolish, and they're taking it seriously. They're looking at funding. They're considering actually implementing this. Let's take a look at how effective this would actually be. You're telling me that a couple of terrorists are going to be sitting on an airplane and say to the guy next to him, "Hey, Mohammed, in 5 minutes, let's hijack this airplane. I'll take out the pilot, and you make sure to kill the stewardess." I mean, it's just absurd that they.
But it's even absurd to even address it as if they're a real terrorist. This is to train you that you're going to be watched 24/7. They admit the airports and airplanes are the beta test for the streets, just like the naked body scanners are now rolling out on the streets.
You might be aware of this. Some of the listeners might be aware of this. There's a program that's been in testing since 2006 in Holland. They may actually implement it in London for the 2012 Olympics, where the cameras are not only now going to watch you, they're going to listen to you and record conversations from 100 yards away and analyze the speech to determine if somebody's being hostile. And they're saying that the privacy laws will allow this in Holland and probably in England. And again, yeah, this is just to design an intimidation factor to keep you in lines that you don't even think about questioning the system, because you're going to get worried that something is going to happen to you, that the government's going to hear you, you're going to get arrested, you're going to get audited, something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, you better shut up and stay in your house and watch TV, which your TiVo's actually tracking what you're watching and doing and reporting it back. But actually, 3 years ago, all over England, they put up cameras that have a mean-looking face on them with a TV screen that when you talk too loud or do something, it screams orders at you. So the actual telescreen, and as you know, 6 years ago, they put up posters all over London with an all-seeing eye saying safe under the eye of Big Brother. So they're coming out and saying 1984 is good.
Yeah, remember there's a 1993 film, Demolition Man, with Sylvester Stallone, and there were these devices listening all over, and if somebody were to say a bad word, the device would hear them and actually charge them a fine. And we're actually coming to that. And again, it's fascinating to see how George Orwell predicted all this. I want to throw another quote out there from him, again, from his 1949 book. This book was written before VCRs, microwaves, color television, but yet he foresaw quote, the telescreen received and transmitted simultaneously. Any sound that Winston made above the level of a whisper would be picked up by it. Moreover, so long as he remained within the field of vision within the metal plaque commanded, he could be seen as well as heard. You had to live, did live, from habit that became instinct, in the assumption that every sound you made was overheard, and except in darkness, every moment scrutinized.
And now, I don't have computers in my bedroom. I have to turn my iPhone off and put it away. And because I'm aware of the total surveillance, I'm already living like Winston Smith. I mean, do you ever catch yourself doing that, Mark?
I have a piece of black tape taped over the camera on my laptop, and I had this up there before this case broke of the students being spied on by their school. And I had friends of mine laugh at me, and they say, oh, hell, the government's going to be watching you. And then I emailed them the article of the school that was spying on the students on their laptops when they were at home.
And the judge ruled that's okay. There were tens of thousands of videos and images of them dressing, undressing, showering, and it all broke because a kid was eating Skittles, and the school called him in and said, we saw you taking drugs. They were watching them in their bedrooms, and they even released on the news images of teenagers asleep in their beds, and the government said, it's good. It's good.
There's some very disturbing GPS systems coming out. Actually, one of them's already on the market now to start training the little kids when they're 3, 4, 5 years old that this is how society is. You're constantly watched. Mom and Dad constantly listen to you. You might have seen this. There's a device called the Amber Alert GPS
Yeah.
system.
Stay there. Meanwhile, DynCorp kidnaps literally hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children. It's in the Chicago Tribune. Nobody gets in trouble. MarkDice.com is the website. He's written multiple books. We carry them all at Infowars.com. They're excellent, including one titled The Illuminati and the Resistance. I know we got a lot of callers who are military, radiologists, TSA, and we're going to take your calls coming up in the next segment. I'll keep Dice a little bit in the next hour as well because he's got so much to talk about. But, Mark, do you agree with me that the global architects, the social engineers, know there's an awakening? In fact, Zbigniew Brzezinski admits that, the greatest awakening, he calls it. And so they're trying to bum rush us and just get everything in place right now because Google's coming out and saying we can predict the future. We're tracking everything you do. We are evil. We are the government. I mean, they're just everywhere admitting all of this now, Mark.
Yeah, and the consensus is to still make us feel like we're the weirdos, we're quackery. But, I mean, let's look at this technology that they say that's supposedly going to predict all this stuff. It is largely quackery, the mind scanners, supposedly being able to read your mind and tell if you've had experiential knowledge of things. This is all coming in the next probably 10 to 15 years. And it's so scary. I mean, before the break, I was mentioning this new GPS device that's about the size of a 50-cent piece that parents are attaching onto their children. And it just shows on their cell phone where their little 2-year-old is at all times. And it also has a microphone in it so they can use their cell phone to listen to their child to see what he's talking about. And this is all just becoming normal. And Facebook, of course, has just caused everybody to fall in love with Big Brother, telling them what they do, think, and feel, where they're at any particular moment.
But, Mark, entire public schools are fitting all the kids with RFID, and in some cases, the GPS trackers. And now, for unpaid parking tickets, they're going to make you wear an anklet bracelet.
Yeah, and the funny thing is most people now using Facebook with over 500 million users are willingly handing over their deepest thoughts, all of their personal information, their family members, where they work. The social implications just on that alone are immense. And I put out a press release a couple weeks ago trying to urge people to log off of Facebook for a week. I called it Facebook Free Week. And I got a little flack even from some of the movement. People think that, oh, this isn't 9/11. Look, there's more to the New World Order than the Big Brother, the economy, the police state, terrorism. There's a whole social aspect of it as well. And if we are turning ourselves, our society, into a bunch of self-absorbed narcissists, not focusing on real events, but just on what I'm doing. Look at what's happened in the last few years with Facebook. Every day, millions of people post multiple times a day what it is that they're doing as if the world literally revolves around them. Oh, I just had a great breakfast. I just had a good latte. I'm It's a beautiful morning today. I'm going to go here. Oh, I'm doing here. Look at my new picture of myself. Don't I look really pretty? It's fascinating, and it's not only me that's saying this. I started noticing this even amongst my actual friends.